Welcome back, my friends, and greetings to the Red Delta Project podcast. I'm your humble host, Matt Schifferly. In today's episode, we are taking a look at the balance and the importance of the two most important aspects of building muscle: volume and intensity. We're addressing this for several reasons. The first of which is that new information just came across my desk, a new article over at Stronger by Science, basically trying to put this idea to a bit more to rest by looking at a whole lot of research. And I'll link down below in the article in the description there. But also because it seems like lately there are a lot of folks who are getting locked into dogmatic camps, following one ideology or another on what supposedly is the best or even the correct way to train for building muscle and making gains. And you've got the volume camp where it's like it's all about volume. Volume is better. More volume is the way to go. You should just drive yourself into the ground with lots of volume. That's how you're going to, quote, optimize your gains. On the other hand, you've got the high intensity crew. These are the folks who are like, oh yeah, I just do one hard set, push it all the way to failure, even past failure, and then I'm done. And both of these schools of thought exist because they're both legitimate, but they're also both highly flawed, as we'll explore in a minute. To basically put it into context, though, we first need to get a little bit more clear on what we're talking about. Volume is fairly simple and straightforward. We're talking about training volume and how much work you're doing. Usually it's given to someone as a number of sets per week. How many sets per week? And then you can break it down to how many sets per exercise, how many sets per muscle group, and so on. And usually when you come across information on this, the best that you're going to find is something that kind of goes along a range. And beware of information that gets very specific, because there's so much nuance and individualism to what is actually going to work best for you that it's next to impossible for someone like me to basically say this is exactly what you should be doing, because I don't know you, I don't know your preferences, I don't know your history, I don't even know what you're accomplishing in a given workout. So it's very difficult to say what you should do. Nonetheless, people will say do exactly 12 sets per week, and people will run with that. And it's not necessarily bad advice, but do you want to settle for cookie cutter advice that's just kind of based on estimation and guesswork? Or do you want to actually know what you need to accomplish in your workouts to get what you want, so you're not leaving anything on the table or wasting time and energy? And that often happens when it comes to the volume camps. Is the general recommendations for volume is somewhere between 8 to 9 sets per muscle group or per week, and then upwards of 20. However, there's also been shown, as the Stronger by Science article will show, that there's nothing about a limit of volume that's going to hold you back. It's not like there's a clear cut amount that, oh yeah, once you go beyond this, you're wasting your time. Generally, it's shown that more volume produces better results, just to the horizon. However, there are other things to consider, like just practical application. Like, yeah, you could just do 1,000 push-ups every single day, but what is that going to do to stress on body, mind, and lifestyle? Some people can handle that. Other people, they've got just constraints that don't allow that. So then we run into situations where we're trying to shoehorn ourselves into programs and follow ideologies that just pull us out of alignment. And anything that does that is going to compromise your progress, regardless of how correct or valid the practice is. So generally, more volume is going to be better. And if you had to pick one of volume or intensity, volume gets this slight edge here, largely because when it comes to the high intensity camps, you can certainly build muscle with very high intensity. And high intensity we need to kind of define here, because intensity can mean different things depending on what camp you're in. Like when I was in school learning about all this stuff, intensity referred to percentage of a 1 rep max. Right. So it was like if you had a weight on a barbell and you lifted 1 repetition of a 10 rep max, that was like moderate intensity, because you could do 10 repetitions. But if you had enough weight that it was like 50% of your 1 rep max, that was a lot more intensity, because it was much more of a percentage of your 1 rep max. Same thing with like a walking versus like running kind of thing. It's basically how much effort are you putting into a short period of time. A hill sprint can be very high intensity. But walking 100 miles would, in that regard, be considered low intensity. And even though you're walking until you're basically just dragging yourself home and you're completely exhausted, that would still be, in that regard, considered low intensity because it's a lower percentage of your higher rep maximum, if you will. So that was what I always was learning what intensity was back in my scholarly days. But in this case of intensity, usually what people are referring to is how close are you pushing yourself towards the muscular limits that you can do in a set? Pushing yourself close to failure. And as I've addressed in the past, the concept of failure is a lot more subjective than we often think it is, especially for folks who are not fairly experienced with lifting. But in this case, what we're talking about with intensity is pushing yourself closer to failure, not necessarily percentage of a 1 rep max. Because you can do, a very, quote, high intense set with 30 repetitions. You're basically pushing yourself until you get that 30th rep and you're swearing like a bloody sailor and just trying to grind it out. That, in this case, would be considered high intensity. But in the case of intensity for 1 rep max, that's still very low intensity kind of stuff. So it's important just to get clear on exactly what we're talking about here. So when it comes to volume, higher volume is getting a good amount of exercises, sets, and workout frequency throughout the week. So you're getting a fair number of sets and just kind of getting a ballpark figure, 15, 20 sets per week. Sometimes you'll find people on a high volume train of like 30, 40 sets even, and so on. And as I mentioned before, there is certainly a correlation with the more you do, the better you make gains. Full stop. On the other hand, high intensity stuff is typically in the camp of like the Dorian Yates kind of, Mike Metzer kind of approaches, where it's like you get a bit of a warm up, you get yourself ready to rock and roll, and then just bang, and you hit that hard set or maybe even 2 sets, and you leave it all on the table. You push as hard as you possibly can, and then after that, you're finished. Now, it should be noted that both approaches can absolutely work. Right? Again, we get lost in the rhetoric in our fitness culture of a debate over which ones work. Right? Does it work to do this? Does it work to do that? And there's always the debate over, the high volume doesn't work. It's got to be high intensity. High intensity, not enough volume. Got to be high volume. And we get nowhere with this sort of debate because it's one of those things that is missing the actual lesson of what you need to know. And as I've always said, your ability to get the results that you're after is not actually what type of workout program you follow. It's not about high volume or high intensity. It's about whether or not you can achieve the fundamental objectives that are responsible for achieving that result. And both volume and intensity play a crucial role in achieving the fundamental objective that promotes muscle growth. And so when we're looking at volume and intensity and asking which one's more important, that's kind of like asking which is more important, the bow or the arrow. It's like, well, they both are. And understanding how they're both important and which one may be more important for you in your current circumstances is where you're going to find the path forward. Not getting lost in this debate of which one is better, which one's more important, which one's more effective, because you're not going to get anywhere with that. You just end up basically running around in circles. And even sometimes what ends up happening is someone may find themselves in an encampment of high intensity or high volume, and in the pursuit of either of those, they compromise the other, which is where you can ultimately hold yourself back. Because when it comes to building muscle, both are important. We need enough volume working at a high intensity to stimulate muscle growth. But in the pursuit of volume, it's very easy to subconsciously compromise your intensity. I used to do this all the time. I did the high volume stuff for many years. And it's always like, okay, yeah, I've got so much to do. I got to pace myself. I'm not really going to push myself because I've got 500 push-ups to do today. So the first few hundred push-ups at least, I'd be like really taking it easy and push and saying, no, I'm not going to push it hard. I'll push it hard later and push it hard later and push it. And I just always deferring the sets that I was really going to work hard at. And then later in the day, I would have done so many push-ups and my arms would be tired. I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to push it that hard. So I'd never really have any sort of intensity to it. But on the other hand, if you're going after high intensity, then you may be compromising the amount of volume you need to sufficiently train your muscles. Because you can certainly train at very high intensity, but you are still leaving quite a bit of energy left in the muscles. Because ultimately, your ability to stimulate muscle growth is, as I call it, to challenge your muscular work capacity, use up a lot of the chemical energy in your muscles. And you can certainly do this with high volume training. You can certainly do it with low volume training. But as with all approaches, you also can do high volume training and not really drain your muscles that much. And you can do high intensity training and not drain your muscles that much. So that's why we don't want to get locked into thinking the ideology is the way to go, that it's either high or low volume training or anything in fitness. Because when we follow an ideology, we actually stop pursuing the very thing that gets you results. You're just crossing your fingers and just hoping it pans out, that the ideology is going to be the way forward. And it never is, because you don't get results by following any particular approach or ideology. You get results through achieving the fundamental objective. And in this case, it's about challenging your muscular work capacity, using your muscles, working them hard, so that at the end of the workouts and the end of the sets and stuff, you've used up a lot of the energy in the muscle cells. That is, as far as we understand it, one of the highest correlations we have towards stimulating muscle growth. And so if you have a higher volume approach, then you have to compromise your intensity to do that. Or let me put it to you this way. If you don't have a whole lot of intensity, you need a lot of volume in order to do that, because you're not using a lot of energy per repetition and per set. So you need more exercises, more sets, more potential frequency throughout the week. However, if you have a low volume approach, then you need a lot of intensity in order to do that, because you've got to use up a lot of energy really, really fast. And you're going to do that by lifting heavier and by pushing much, much more into that proverbial red zone, going to failure or even past failure with techniques like drop sets, pause reps training, and forced reps, that sort of thing. And again, it's not one is better or worse, but the majority of people find that it's difficult to do it with either of those to an extreme. For example, when you're going with a high volume approach, that takes a good amount of time and it takes a good amount of energy in order to do that, like with German volume training, 10 by 10 kind of idea. So you've been in the gym for like 40 minutes and you're still only on your first exercise. And you're just still getting those repetitions in. So it can be very time consuming, very energy consuming and stuff, which is kind of the idea, to use up a lot of that energy. But you want to also think of practical application. Is at the end of the day, a fitness plan only works if you can actually do it, if you can do it consistently. And a lot of times people have trouble sticking to a plan just because it's impractical. They don't have the time, they don't have the energy, they don't have the motivation, and they don't have the physical or mental energy to do it. And I know a lot of the influencers and experts out there are like, no excuses, stop making excuses. And it's like, it's not an excuse. If someone doesn't have a whole lot of time, what do you expect them to get, like an extra 2 hours in their day just to magically appear? I know you could be like, well, how long are you doom scrolling and wasting time on your phone and things like that? But it doesn't matter, because you're still talking about the use of a lot more of a resource that you have in short supply. And whenever you run into that, you're going to have a lot harder time making anything happen in your success. You're going to have a lot less inconsistency, a lot more inconsistency. You're not going to be able to push yourself as much. So with the higher volume stuff, you run into those kinds of constraints. With the higher intensity stuff, you also run into some potential constraints, because you're going to have to go heavy and you're going to have to really push yourself. Now, from my experience, like, I can push myself pretty hard, but I know I can't do it all the time. I would say in a given month, I probably can really push my muscles into that red zone probably about 20% of the time. The other times, I've got some other confounding variable. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm distracted, I'm stressed out mentally, emotionally. Like, it's hard to push yourself into that red zone. It really is. And it takes experience, it takes practice. And a lot of times is why I always said that going to failure is largely subjective. It's because a lot of people will go to what they think is their limit, and it really isn't. I've experienced this myself. I've experienced it with clients and seen it in the real world way too many times, where someone will swear on a stack of Bibles that you've got, the 10 reps for pull-ups, and then something changes for them mentally or emotionally. Gym crush walks through the door, or just people are watching, or they're just even amped up, good song on the playlist, whatever. And suddenly they get an extra 3 reps. It's like, 10 reps was not your limit. I know you thought it was, but it wasn't. And you could have probably even gotten an extra 2 there. So going into that high level of intensity is really, really hard to do. And even when you can do it, it's hard to do it consistently. Because always remember, especially when it comes to building muscle, that the ultimate thing is we need to create a stimulus, and we need to just do it consistently. Because ultimately, there is no way in hell I can make much muscle growth happen from anything you do in a given workout. Now, I'm sorry, it's just the math isn't there. There is no way in hell you can work out today and cause much muscle growth. It's just not possible. There's not enough physical resources. There's not enough time and energy. You can't put on 20 pounds of muscle from a workout. You can't even put on 1 pound of muscle from a workout. Today, on one of the Lane Norton podcasts, I think it was talking about on a good day, from a given perspective, you're talking 5 to 10 grams of muscle growth in a given day or a period of time. So there's just no way you can do a whole lot. So the only chance we have for building any appreciable amount of muscle is to create that stimulus time after time after time after time after time with as little interruption as possible for as long as you can go. Months, years preferably. So when we look at high volume and high intensity training, generally speaking, the odds of being able to do that decrease. And yeah, you can look at a given workout and be like, oh my gosh, you went high intensity or high volume, and he created an insanely stimulating workout. And the stimulus was huge in that workout. It's like, okay, great. You could do it for a workout. You could do it for a week. Hell, you can even do it for a few months. Big deal. It's not going to do a whole lot for you. The only way this works is if you can stick to it. And so when we go after high volume and we run into practicality constraints, and we go after high intensity and we run into mental constraints, technical constraints of can you keep your technique with the heavy load, joint constraints sometimes. A lot of folks, they're training heavy and they're like, don't I need to train really heavy to build muscle? It's like, no. It's like, oh, thank heavens, because my back and my shoulders and my knees are not doing fairly well on like 5x5 or something where I'm going really heavy. If I can go much lighter, that's going to be a lot easier on my joints. I'm like, great. Yeah, go for it. So it's largely about addressing which of these variables is causing you to run against obstacles that are preventing you from consistently creating a strong stimulus for building muscle. And that's going to be individual for different people. Some people do better with higher intensity. Some people do better with lower intensity, higher volume. There's a lot of different variables. There's training variables to consider. There's practicality to consider. A lot of it, too, is just personal preference and training style that we like. If you came to me and you were like, Matt, I want to put on muscle, and I'm like, yeah, did you play sports or anything in school? And like, yeah, I used to play soccer. I ran cross country, and I once did a 1,000 push-up a day push-up challenge or something like that. I'm like, okay, you're probably going to be a volume guy because you have spent years conditioning your body, mind, and your emotional heart set even to embrace volume. And high intensity is probably not going to be your cup of tea. So you're going to push yourself harder with volume. But if you came to me and you're on the other end of the spectrum, you're like, I ran 200 meters in track and field, and I played rugby, and I like a good, hard, quick circuit, in a CrossFit Metcon circuit. I'm like, intensity is probably going to be more your thing. You're used to pushing that yourself into that red zone. And you could do that hard and fast, but you're also going to probably burn out real quick too. And that's kind of what you want to look at for the the thing that is going to be kind of the litmus test for you is how quickly do you burn out? Because challenging your muscular work capacity is effectively that, burning your muscles out. So if you do like a high intensity approach, let's say it calls for just 2 hard work sets for a muscle group, and after that 2 hard work sets, you're like, I am still good to go. I can still get another hard set and I can still do more exercises. Like I am feeling like I want more volume. You're probably better off with more volume. It doesn't matter if someone's like, oh, no, you don't need it. You've got the intensity. No, if you can do it, do it. But on the other hand, if you're an intensity guy and your program is calling for like 8 hard sets and you are burned out after 2, you're done. You are done. And that's usually what I come across, especially with the double tap training that I practice, where it's like good hard work set, good hard work set. And even sometimes I'll be like, I think I want one more. I think I want another. And then I'll go for it. And ideally, the number of reps I do should just plummet. Like with pull-ups, it's like I got 10 reps, I got 9 reps, I got 3 kind of idea. That's the burnout you're looking for. That's what you're going after. And use volume and intensity in the way that's best for you to achieve that. If you feel like you need more volume to get there, go for it. More volume. It doesn't need to be more sets of a given exercise. Double tap training is still 2 hard work sets, but that's per exercise. If you want more volume, you just do other exercises that still work that muscle group. It gives you a much broader stimulus for athleticism and helps to stave off repetitive use injuries and things like that. But when it comes to high intensity stuff, if you can get the job done in 2 sets, we'll only do 2 sets. It's one of those things that you have to kind of listen to your experience, because when we make the ideology the important thing of following the program, but we're not listening to our experience or whether or not we're achieving that fundamental objective on a consistent basis, that's when we start to get run astray and feel lost. Got questions coming on in here. Come on in, folks. The water's fine. So, first question coming on: 100 squats a day keeps the doctor away. I kind of like that idea. I wouldn't necessarily say it's about the 100. I'd say it's just squats in general. Deep squats, especially, are one of the best things that we can do for our lower body health and well being. They promote stability, mobility, which is huge for the lower body, especially since we sit a whole lot, and to some degree, of course, strength. Now, in this case, high 100 squats is high volume, low intensity. Now we're talking intensity by percentage of 1 rep max. So one single squat is not very, very intense, but it could be high intensity as far as using up your capacity by the end of the 100 one. And if you've not tried high volume squats before, don't knock it till you try it. A friend of mine one time gave me the challenge. He's like, do you think you can do squats for 5 whole minutes? And I was like, yeah, sure, easy, no problem. And I think I made it a minute and a half before my legs started cramping. When you're moving at a consistent pace and things like that. So high volume stuff like that can really be enlightening. It can be a good challenge. If you're starting to look into that, I would say squat every day, but don't worry about the number right off the bat. Make it a goal to do something like 10, because you get a lot out of just a few reps. Seriously. I used to be very, very tight and stiff when it came to deep squats. And I would just make a goal of every time I need to pick something up off the floor, I would squat down to pick it up rather than like bending over. And after a couple of months, that made a big difference, even though it was only happening several times a day whenever I would get something off the floor or pull something out of the bottom drawer of my refrigerator. So start with 10, then 20, 30. The key is to not feel like you're just running yourself ragged. Don't seek the fatigue in your general overall well-being. Like, I know we're talking about using work capacity, burn out the muscle, fatigue the muscle. Yes, fatigue the muscle, not systematically though, not the whole body. If you're doing a high amount of repetitions and you're getting kind of burned out and sick of the exercise after a while, drop it back down. We want to keep momentum and motivation to do the exercise. And that's going to be a different number for everybody. And it could even change for you. You could be great doing 100 squats a day right now, but then, next year or next season, you're doing more trail running and stuff and 100 is just not happening. Well, then go down to 50. That's fine. We often think that exercise only works if we have a quantifiable metric. Like it only works if I do this for an hour, or it only works if I do 100 squats. And we've got like a all or nothing approach. And we want to get out of that prison as quickly as possible. People always are asking me this. What do you think of Mike Mentzer? Consolidation routine and stuff. And yeah, it's the high intensity kind of stuff. Again, it's always the idea of like, does it work? Sure, absolutely. If it didn't work, no one would ever do it. He wouldn't even do it if it didn't work. Can it work? Yes. But the real question of always to ask is, will it work for you? Always try to get the odds in your favor. I don't care if Mike Mentzer's routine helped 1 million people get massive and jacked. It's completely irrelevant to you, because if you try it and you're like, oh, it hurts my joints, or I can't push myself that hard, or it's hard, it's feeling like not very satisfying, like I want to do more, then do more. Don't worry about the routine. Never put the routine in charge. You should be in charge. Change any routine, including my own, however you want to better achieve a fundamental objective on a consistent basis. But use things like that as a template. If it sounds good to you and you're like, I think this can be a good thing for me, great, but use it only as a starting point and then modify it however you want. Because we have to remember that this whole fitness thing is completely open source. No one's in charge. There's no authority in fitness on what the correct way to get in shape is, or what the right way to eat or exercise is. We like to pretend that we have the authority, or we are the authority, but we're not, because we're ultimately not in control of this. It is Mother Nature who's in control. And use your routines as templates, but modify them however you like to best align with the principles of nature that are governing the results. But yeah, modified here. Everyday movement keeps the doctor away. Yes, absolutely. It wasn't too long ago that we humans needed to move every day just to survive. If you wanted to see your friend, you had to walk, run, or climb to get to them. If you wanted to defend yourself, you had to physically fight. If you wanted to have fun and entertainment, you had to engage your body some way. We're made to move and do things on a daily basis. And that's definitely a good thing. It doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be exhausting, but you definitely want some movement on a daily basis if you can. So frequency and workout recommendations for 40 plus BJJ guy looking to improve muscularity. Very good. So start off with the basics here. As I was saying, like we modify templates and stuff based on what is best for you, but it's good to kind of just start with the broad, general, basic stuff. And a lot of people don't like to do that, because a lot of the information in our fitness culture, once again, not based on science, it's based on sales, is that you need something special or unique because of your demographic. You're a BJJ guy, a martial artist, and you're over 40 years old. Completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter at all. If you came to me and you're like, I want to build muscle, I will train you exactly the same way I train everybody else. I don't care if you're a martial artist. I don't care what your age is. I don't give a damn if you're male or living in the Northern Hemisphere, or you're a Yankees fan, or 100 other things that the fitness culture will tell you need something special because of your demographic characteristics. And the only reason why they do it is they're trying to sell you something you don't need. Here's the thing. You're trying to build muscle, challenge your muscular work capacity. That's your first foremost thing. That's what you got to do. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what exercises you do. It does not matter unless it matters to you. Okay, so if you're like, I like free weights, great, free weights. I'm a calisthenics guy. I do calisthenics. Does it matter? No, unless it matters to me, because I can challenge my muscular work capacity a hell of a lot better with calisthenics than I could with weights. But that's just me. Use the template, though, of the 2 to 3 principle. Work your muscular work capacity of a muscle 2 to 3 times a week with 2 to 3 exercises for 2 to 3 hard sets. It's not fancy, but that's going to get you in the general-ish ballpark of what's probably going to get you roughly there. Again, each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 exercises, 2 to 3 hard sets. You can use a wide range of repetitions for it, for resistance. Science is very clear on this. You can go higher volume, lower intensity, 20, 30 repetitions. You can go higher intensity, lower volume for the repetitions with 8, 10, 12, 15 repetitions. Use what you feel most comfortable with. Use whatever you feel is the easiest way for you to push yourself into that red zone for that work capacity. Some people are going to have a much easier time going heavier. Some people are going to have an easier time going with more volume. We could certainly make the case for both based on, well, I'm over 40 years old. Yeah, there could easily be a case for saying you better be training heavy. There's just as much of a case to say you should be training light too. So listen to your experience. Play with it a little bit. Spend a few weeks going heavier. Spend a few weeks going lighter. Which one do you feel the most comfortable with so you can really push your muscles? Which one gives you the best advantage for pushing your muscles on a consistent basis? Keeping in mind that some muscle groups might even be a little different. You could say, oh yeah, push-ups and pull-ups or push and pull I can do 3 times a week. It's awesome, but I can only really kill my legs twice. If I do it 3 times a week, it's really eaten into my BJJ practice, or I'm just sore for 2 days, and then I got to do my legs all over again kind of stuff. So use that as a general template. 2 to 3. 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 exercises, 2 to 3 sets, sort of thing. And that will generally land you in a good ballpark for pretty much anybody with strength and conditioning. Oh, good point here. Vin Chi saying, I think it depends on your current condition and goal. Yeah, it depends on a lot of things. That's why the universal answer to almost everything when it comes to diet and exercise is it depends. Which is why it's damn near impossible for guys like me to tell you exactly what you need, because damned if I know. I don't know you. I don't know your condition. I don't know your goals. I don't know your abilities. I don't know your skills. I don't know your resources. I don't know your focus. I don't know your motivation. And so when I train with people one-on-one, I'm taking all of that into account so I can give them what they actually need based on all of these things. And that's kind of what I was going with the approaches with things like, okay, age, and with your BJJ and martial arts and all these other sorts of things. Is it something that matters? Yes, but it matters because it changes what you can do. So I don't know, you could be doing BJJ every night of the week. That's a lot of activity. That's a lot of exercise. So naturally, that's going to have an influence over your ability to train hard and push yourself. So you may be better off with less. You could also train 2 BJJ classes a week, and one of them is actually fairly low key. Okay, great. You could probably do a lot more, kind of thing. And this is why you always want to listen to your feedback that your body's telling you. What can you do? Can you go, is the old saying from legendary strength coach Dan John. Can you go? If you go, go. But if you're struggling with it, then you modify a little bit. And that's why adaptability and auto-regulation are really the keys here, both for better effective workouts, more enjoyable workouts, but also safer workouts. It's when we are dogmatically following the ideologies that we get in trouble. You go and do your BJJ class and you're getting your joints all wrenched and twisted and everything for an hour and a half. And then afterwards, you're like, oh, I didn't do my 100 push-ups today. Okay, I got to do that. And you drop down on the floor, and after about 10 or 11 reps, you start feeling this weird thing in your shoulder, and you're like, no, but I got to do my 100 push-ups. And then after 20 or 30 reps, that thing is starting to feel like a burn. And then after 50 reps, you're starting to feel like something's tearing in your shoulder. And again, your body's saying, stop, don't do this. But you're not listening to it because you put the ideology in charge, not the actual goal. All right, more questions. Super Chiquita. I think you've been on before here, my friend. It's good to see you again. Matt, been working on my vertical jump in the evenings just for fun. That's a good thing to do. I've made some progress, good, but surprisingly, I'm also seeing muscle gains. Yes, I ended up gaining muscle when my only goal was jumping higher. Not surprising. This certainly can happen. So I want to back up a little bit where I was talking to you want to challenge your muscular work capacity to build muscle. Yeah, so really pushing yourself close to failure. With a lot of explosive training, you're not doing that. Or at least most of the time you shouldn't be. You should be staying well away from failure, from that sort of idea, because your power and explosive training will be compromised if you get too tired. Plus, if you're doing like vertical jumps and you're jumping as high as you possibly can, you jump lower and lower and lower and lower and lower and lower, and you keep challenging your work capacity, but you're not really getting that much benefit out of your explosive power either. So it would be tempting to look at that and say, yeah, but if I'm not really challenging my muscular work capacity very much, then I won't build muscle. And the answer to that is, of course, you can still build muscle. You can build muscle with damn near anything. I mean, astronauts who come back to Earth from being in outer space with zero gravity and they lose a lot of the stimulus for maintaining muscle, they build muscle walking around because they've got more of that stimulus there. So yeah, you're creating the stimulus to build muscle pretty much any time you're subjecting your muscle to any degree of workload at all. Okay, so it's not like, again, like I said before, like a black and white either or thing where it's like you're only going to achieve a result if you can fulfill this parameter and this objective. That's not true. That's simply not the case. You can build muscle anytime you're just pushing your muscles either with intensity or some volume. Are you going to build as much as if you were really challenging capacity? No, it's not going to be optimal, but who cares? Optimization only matters to the top 1%, if that, of people where it really matters to get that. For the majority of us, optimization is a waste of time because it's a very high cost for negligible benefits that we probably won't even notice. Speaking as a former collegiate athlete, as a bike racer, I got to learn this very much firsthand, where the smallest difference in my gear setup could make a very big difference on the race course, because I was trying to shave off seconds from an hour-long race. But now I'm a recreational mountain biker, and honestly, does it matter if I have a carbon fiber frame or an aluminum frame? No. Does it matter if I have my tires set at 18 PSI versus 19? No. Back then, it sure as hell did. Oh, it mattered a lot. But that was because I was going after 10 seconds of speed over the course of an hour. Now, I could be 10 minutes slower. I wouldn't even notice. I was like, I don't care. So that's where most of us fall into, is being able to build muscle strength and health. We're good with that 80%. Like I was giving you the 2 to 3 strategy. Work a muscle 2 to 3 times a week for 2 to 3 exercises, 2 to 3 sets. Is that optimal? No. Does it matter? Probably not. That's going to get you pretty damn close to what you're going to need, and then just base things off of your feedback and preferences and time and energy, sort of thing. You could say, yeah, but I'm good with my lower body training with just goblet squats on kettlebells. Is that 2 to 3 exercises? No. Is it good enough? Yeah, sure, go for it. Or jumping or something like that. That's perfectly fine. Ultimately, do things like that you like. Oh, this is a good one here. You guys are on the ball today. Great questions. Why can I not feel my lats at all in lat pull downs and low cable rows? I keep my back straight and make sure I don't bend back too much, but no result. Yeah. Poor tension control, my friend. Don't make the mistake of thinking that your muscles are working because you're doing an exercise. You're putting the cart before the horse. Everyone does this. I did this for years, deeply regret it. Those lat pull downs are not supposed to work your lats. The rows are not supposed to work your lats. You're supposed to use your lats to do the pull downs and the rows. Okay? It's not a chicken or the egg thing. It is a clear chain of events here. So the muscle tension, that's what you're feeling, is, well, you're feeling the metabolic byproducts of using your muscles, but that's from tension, is created from your nervous system. How well does your brain talk to your muscles? That's really what it's all about. All forms of training is how well can you use your own muscles? And that is a skill we all should be working on. Muscle tension. they refer to it as a mind-muscle connection. That's really a bro science-y way to look at it. It is tension control. Can you just flex the muscle? Do it right now. Can you just stand there and flex your lats? Right? Just try. If you have good tension control, you should be able to just do that. Just, oh, there we go. Lats are on. Lats are really flexed. Now, if the tension control isn't very good, you may not experience that. You may just flex and you're like, I guess I kind of have it, I think. I sort of. No, it should be very obvious. It should give you a lot of feedback. So that's a good thing, though, because it means your tension control is low. And this is the thing, is if your tension control is pretty low, which is very common, especially in the backside. I used to have very poor tension control in my lats. If your tension control is low, nothing you do will ever work to build that muscle up, because you literally have trouble just getting the muscle to work. You can do the exercises, you can change your techniques, you have a perfect technique and perfect program and perfect tools and all these different attachments and everything on the cable machines and stuff. Doesn't matter. Your brain tells your muscles what to do. If your brain has trouble doing that, you can do a million things. Nothing's ever really going to work for you. But here's the good news. You improve your tension control, you could have the worst form in the world. You could have the most crappy equipment imaginable, and it's going to work like crazy. It's going to work great. So what can you do for practical application if you're having trouble with this? Well, first and foremost is isometrics. As I talked ad nauseum, I've got a whole playlist on isometrics. I've written a book on isometrics. I've got a lot of isometric resources for you. It's much easier to improve tension control with isometrics. So warm up with isometrics. Just kind of hold back. Feel like you're trying to squeeze your back together. A lot of times we think lats spread your back apart. No, they pull your back together. Squeeze everything close towards your spine, kind of like how your chest is an adductor. Well, your lats are kind of the same thing, but for your back. So warm up with 5 to 10 seconds of isometrics. Just try to get the tension in the muscles. If you're doing it and you're like, I just don't feel it back there, great, just keep doing it. One of the things about tension control to understand is that it will get better. You just got to keep trying to do it, though. You're like, not feeling it, not feeling it, not feeling it. 2 weeks later, still not feeling it. Great. A month later, still not feeling it. Good, keep going. 2 months later, still not feeling it. Yep, keep going, keep going. It will hit sooner or later, and it's going to be there a little bit, and then a little more, and then more, and more, and then bang, it's going to be one day you're just going to grab onto that pull-up bar or do those pull-downs, and your back's going to light up like a Christmas tree. You're like, whoa, boy, does that feel different. I'm like, welcome to the new level, next level, my friend. It takes practice. Tension control is always that thing we can work on. I don't care if you're a seasoned bodybuilder, whatever, we can always improve upon it, and we can always get better at it. And that is the foundation of being able to work our muscle, because if you can't really engage a muscle, you can't really train it. But if you can engage it, you can train it with damn near anything. Like I said, you can build muscle with almost any kind of training modality and stuff. I mean, I've known people who've built incredible amounts of muscle with the stupidest programs. And they're literally like lifting rocks in a rock quarry or something. But the musculature that they have is very impressive. They're like, what's your routine like? Well, I don't know. I just lift these rocks like for an hour or so. It's like, yep, tension control is where it's at, my friend. So I'm excited for you, because that's going to open up some big doors for you. And then when it goes from your lats, you're going to go to everything else, and it's going to be a big game changer. Got questions on, once again, lower body. Matt, pistol squats, any tips to work on ankle mobility and balance? It's been a sticking point for a while now. Couple things here. First and foremost, look to your hips for your balance. A lot of times the ankle and the lower leg is trying to balance you due to a lack of, once again, tension control and coordination in your hips. And so when you are doing your pistol squats, make sure you're getting your glutes and your lateral hips and your adductors and everything some degree of tension top to bottom. A lot of times people have tension at the top of a pistol, they come down and then they lose it, and their muscles just turn right off. That's not about range of motion, it's about range of tension. Can you maintain tension through it? And again, that's tension control. That's practice. Just takes practice. So things like box pistol squats are helpful for that. Squatting down, but coming down to a low step or like a 12-inch box, Can you come down under control, gently touch, and then come back up with tension in your hips? Or are you coming down and dropping those last few inches? And then you're like lurching forward with your arms and everything to get out of the hole. So try to maintain the tension in your hips, because a lot of times ankle mobility is also hip mobility as well. So there's that. The other thing too is always, again, prioritize knees over toes. There's a whole YouTube channel out there for good reason. Knees over toes is the way to go. So if you are trying to sit back too much, you're like, well, you're supposed to sit back. Yes, but not exclusively. Get your knee over your toes as much as you can, and that will improve your ankle mobility as well. But everything's going to be super tight and restrictive if you're trying to have all of your stability happen from your lower leg, which is really hard because you've got relatively small muscles trying to do a big job. That's never a winning formula because the muscles are also just too distal. Yeah, they're at the end of your leg and they're trying to control your entire body. Hips, much more central, much bigger, much stronger muscles, which is why that tension in your hips is probably going to be the big difference there for you. Speaking of range of tension, Nick Saw, good to see you, my friend, saying, how do you feel about partial reps to hit a certain range? The bottom push-up half reps to avoid the lockout and triceps really hit the chest intensely. Seems to be a popular idea floating around lately. Yeah, it's a popular idea for a good reason. It works. It's great. Remember, my friends, that we're going after our objective. Challenge your muscular work capacity. And you can change a million variables a million different ways. Whatever, as long as you're hitting that objective, it's going to work. We often think like, oh, this idea will work, and if you do it this way, it won't work, and so I don't care. I don't care how you train, what you train, partial range of motion, isometrics, full range. It's not really going to matter that much as long as you're achieving that objective for building muscle. Now, I will say, though, that in general, I'm certainly in the camp where usually more range of motion is just going to be better for you. Now, in this case, you're talking about the half rep during the hard part of the exercise, which is great for adding intensity. Again, intensity pertaining to the percentage of a 1 rep max, because you're spending more time where there's more resistance within that range of motion. So that's why it can really be good for building muscle and really burning yourself out a little bit faster, because you're not giving yourself that part of the range of motion where you're having little less resistance. So yeah, great idea. It's fun, wonderful. Do you have to do it? No. Are you missing out if you don't do it? Probably not. But you certainly can play with it. And you might like it. And if you really like it, well, then that's reason enough to do it. But generally, my attitude is use a bigger range of motion if you can in most exercises, because you're just going to get better off with it. For example, like in a squat, like we could make the argument that going in just the bottom half of the range is going to work your muscles into oblivion. Yeah. But part of the challenge, especially for athletic application and stuff, is getting full hip extension and using how to use your glutes well for the sake of power and explosiveness. You can do that at the lower end, but you're going to have more of that at the higher end. So you're going to have some degree of benefit one way or the other at both the top and the lower half. So that's many reasons why I just like a bigger range of motion in general. You don't have to use that all the time, but that's my take on things. My preference is the bigger the range, the better. But yeah, going in that, short, difficult half, that could be a lot of fun too. So let's wrap this up with a pretty little bow. Basically, if you're looking to build muscle, that's kind of what our topic is today. Both intensity and volume are important. Generally, for most people, when it comes to building muscle, you're as much as we don't like to admit it, most of us are average with average bodies and average abilities and average strength. So you're probably going to be best off with an average program. That's where my 2 to 3 thing comes into play. Hit the muscle 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 exercises, 2 to 3 sets, pushing close to failure, challenge your work capacity on each one. That's probably going to take care of you. You probably don't need anything special or unique, but start there and use volume and intensity as interchangeable variables to better help you achieve that objective of challenge your work capacity to what's best for you. And kind of listen to your gut on this. I get emails all the time from people saying, like, I'm doing this program, but I feel like I'm better off with this other approach. Like, I'm better off with more intensity, or I'm better off with more volume. Chances are really good if you're getting those signals from your subconscious and you kind of want to go in that direction. It's probably going to be better for you. It's just you know your body better than anything else. So you're getting those bits of feedback. So if you want to go with a more volume or you want to go more intensity, go for it. As long as you're still challenging your muscular work capacity on a consistent basis, that's what you're going after. And discredit or stay away from approaches, methods, and extremes that compromise your ability to consistently challenge that work capacity. Doesn't matter what the science or research someone is citing says. Doesn't matter if it helped 1 million people get big and massive and jacked. If that approach is harder for you to consistently challenge your work capacity with, it's not going to be as effective. Full stop. And whatever is going to be easier for you to achieve that is going to be more effective. That's why I do calisthenics, because it's a lot easier for me to consistently challenge my muscular work capacity to a very high degree with calisthenics than anything else. And that's why it works better for me. Could be different for you. So listen to your body, listen to your experience. Don't be afraid to change things up too. A lot of people, they just like the variety. They'll go with like a month of higher intensity, lower volume training. And then they'll change it up to a month of higher volume, lower intensity training, and back and forth. Just variety. It's the spice of life. The science has shown you don't necessarily need like periodization and stuff for the sake of hypertrophy. It's more of an athletics kind of training thing. But hey, if it feels good and it keeps you motivated and it allows you to really push yourself one way or the other, then go with that. And that's probably going to be the best way to go for you. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming on in. Sincerely appreciate. I'm still kind of getting my feet wet with my new job and stuff. It's really throwing my schedule into a tizzy. This is Wednesday evening where I'm trying to get my podcast regularly on Wednesday evenings because I'm not going to really have my weekends anymore. May have to move to Friday afternoons or evenings. It's still up in the air, so I promise I'm going to get this thing figured out and consistent in the time being. But for right now, I'm just kind of getting these episodes in when and where I can on a weekly basis. But don't forget that the new episodes are always available, podcast directory of choice, and in the live tab over at Red Delta Project YouTube channel as well. Working on a lot of great stuff coming your way, folks, including the Ultimate RDP Bible, all of my methods, all of my approaches, and everything in one single book to help you be fit and live free so that you can get much better results a lot easier without wasting nearly as much time and energy with less stress on body, mind, and lifestyle. So I'll keep you up to date on that as it comes on out. But best of luck in your workouts this week. And as always, be fit and live free.